The beginning of Eloise was never meant to be sinister. But madness has a way of growing in silence. It was 1839. A stretch of cold, empty land in Wayne County, Michigan. A poorhouse was built, simple, wooden, unremarkable. Its purpose? To offer shelter to the elderly, the poor, and the mentally ill who had been cast out from society. A place of mercy. Or at least, that's what they wanted the world to believe. But as the decades passed, something changed. The poorhouse grew, swallowing acres of land like a living thing. One building turned into 10, then 20, then 75. By the 1920s, Eloise was no longer a place, it was a city. A city with its own police force, fire department, dairy farm, bakery, morgue, and even a graveyard where over 7,000 unmarked bodies were laid to rest beneath the soil. To outsiders, it was a marvel of self-sufficiency. But to those who entered, it became something else entirely. Inside the walls, a different world pulsed, a quiet, clinical machine designed not to heal, but to contain. Patients weren't patients. They were numbers. Records were vague. Files went missing. Some were admitted for minor emotional distress, others for poverty. And yet they all vanished into the same dark system. Families dropped off their loved ones and never heard from them again. Some say the letters stopped coming. Others say the letters were written, but never sent. Whispers began to circle the town. That the staff no longer feared death, only noise. That the screams echoing through the long, tiled halls were no longer noticed. That somewhere deep in the asylum, doors were locked permanently, for reasons no one dared explain. Eloise had stopped being a sanctuary. It had become a machine that fed on human fragility. A factory of forgotten minds. A monument to suffering, hidden in plain sight. No one knows the exact moment the shift happened, when the light dimmed, when the care turned into control, when the treatment became torment. But everyone who entered after that moment felt it. The pressure in the air. The sense of watching eyes. The cold that came from inside the walls. They built Eloise to save the broken. Instead, they buried them in silence. They say Eloise changed people. That once you stepped inside, something began to unravel, quietly, slowly, until your mind no longer belonged to you. But what if that was the point? In the beginning, it was just a whisper. A rumor passed between staff. That some patients were being taken to the West Wing at night. That doctors were conducting procedures not recorded in the official logs. That entire files were being erased. Electroconvulsive therapy became the preferred solution for everything. Depression, insomnia, grief, rebellion. Even for those who simply spoke too much. Patients would return from the treatment rooms trembling, eyes empty, unable to speak. And yet they were declared stable. It didn't stop there. Lobotomies, crude, ice-pick surgeries, were performed in rooms without proper light. Some lasted only minutes. Others, hours. One former orderly said the screams didn't sound human anymore. He only lasted 2 months before he quit, but he never forgot the sound of bones cracking beneath the surgical hammer. Then came the experimental drugs. No names. No records. Just vials marked with codes and dosages. Patients were used as test subjects, made to swallow unknown chemicals, injected with compounds that left them twitching for hours. Some were sedated for days. Others simply never woke up. And yet, The reports were always the same: condition, improving. Behavior, compliant. Subject is responding well. But these weren't patients anymore. They were property. Living specimens in a system that had stopped pretending to care. Eloise didn't need to hide its horrors. Because no one was looking. Families were told their loved ones were progressing. They were shown curated tours of clean rooms and polite nurses. They were told that healing was slow, but happening. Meanwhile, deep underground, in wings no longer marked on maps, something else was unfolding. Something darker. There were rumors of the White Room. A windowless, soundless chamber where patients were placed for days, sometimes weeks, without food, light, or contact. No one who went in ever came back the same. Some didn't come back at all. An old staff diary, found years later in the rubble, had just one page left intact. Written in shaky pencil, it read, "There's something beneath this place. Not in the walls. In the work. We stopped trying to cure them. We started learning how to break them." No one knows how many people were lost in Eloise. Because no one counted. Not really. They were forgotten. One by one. Until even their ghosts had no names. And today, the silence inside those ruins is not peace. It is memory. Of everything that was done, and everything that was never meant to be known. Like all things born of secrecy and suffering, Eloise did not collapse in fire or chaos, but in silence, slow, deliberate, and almost imperceptible to those who weren't paying attention. By the late 1960s, the asylum had already begun to rot from within, not in its structure, but in its soul. The walls still stood, the windows still stared out over the grounds like hollow eyes, but something fundamental had changed. What had once masqueraded as a place of healing had become a relic of an era best forgotten, an institution clinging to its own myth while the world outside it began to ask questions. Mental health reform was sweeping the country. Investigations into psychiatric facilities were no longer rare. News outlets published disturbing stories from former patients, and whispers of abuse, neglect, and cruelty reached the ears of lawmakers. Even Eloise, once protected by its size and self-contained system, could no longer hide in plain sight. Staff who had remained silent for years began to speak, softly, anonymously, describing procedures that defied both medical ethics and human compassion. Some spoke of patients kept in isolation for weeks with no sunlight, of individuals drugged into near catatonia to ensure obedience, of surgeries performed without consent or documentation. Others described things more difficult to categorize: noises in abandoned wings, entire rooms sealed off without explanation, and patients who had simply vanished without a trace. Administrators did what they always did: denied, delayed, and disappeared. Buildings were quietly decommissioned. Entire wings were closed for renovations, yet no repairs were ever made. Patient records were lost in fires no one remembered, in floods no one reported. By the mid-1970s, Eloise was being dismantled, not publicly, not all at once, but piece by piece, like a decaying body being buried limb by limb. In 1984, the final wing was closed. The last of the patients were either relocated or forgotten. The gates were locked, the power cut, and the complex was left to the elements. Yet no one came to clean out the rooms. No one emptied the file cabinets or removed the gurneys from the corridors. Eloise wasn't shut down, it was abandoned, as if those who had run it were too afraid to touch it any longer. And still, it remained. Rusting beds lined empty wards where the air hung heavy with mildew and something harder to name. Medical equipment sat in silent corners, covered in dust and cobwebs. Nurses' stations looked as if their occupants had simply stepped out and never returned. Children's drawings still clung to peeling walls. Names, carved into the wood of door frames, faded but not gone. Urban explorers who dared enter in the years that followed spoke of strange occurrences, muffled cries from below, shadows crossing hallways where no one stood, sudden cold that wrapped around the chest like hands that remembered the living. Some left with footage, others with stories. A few? Not at all. Eloise didn't fall like a crumbling ruin. It sank, quietly, into a kind of darkness that outlived its purpose. Because some places don't die when you lock the doors. They wait. They remember. And they whisper, still. The walls of Eloise are said to remember. They hold echoes of the past, the whispers of those who never left. Visitors and urban explorers have long spoken of strange occurrences. Footsteps where no one walks. Doors creaking open by themselves. Cold spots, so intense they take your breath away. Many report hearing distant screams, painful, desperate, and chillingly real, carrying through the empty corridors. Some have seen shadows darting just beyond the edge of their vision. Figures standing silently in broken windows. Faces staring from cracked mirrors, only to vanish when looked at directly. The most chilling stories come from those who ventured into the basement levels. A labyrinth of tunnels and rooms that the hospital's blueprints never showed. Here, the air is thick and heavy, almost suffocating. People speak of disembodied voices whispering names. Of cold hands brushing past their skin. Of feelings of dread so overwhelming they had to flee. One paranormal investigator claimed to have recorded voices pleading for help, captured on an old tape recorder. The audio, when played back, was a haunting chorus of cries and murmurs, so clear it sent chills down the spine of everyone who heard it. Locals say Eloise's restless spirits are those of the forgotten, the patients who suffered in silence, the ones who were experimented on, and those who vanished without a trace. Some believe the building itself is cursed, a trap for souls unable to move on. Even in daylight, the asylum's shadows seem to move on their own. Windows flicker with unexplained light. And sometimes on quiet nights, the faint sound of children laughing echoes across the grounds. What once was a place of healing has become a mausoleum of memories. And those memories refuse to fade. They linger in the walls, they haunt the halls, and they whisper. Always whisper. Though decades have passed since Eloise closed its doors, the asylum's presence is far from gone. The buildings stand as hollow monuments, crumbling, yet defiant against time itself. Rust stains streak down concrete walls. Broken windows gape like empty eye sockets, revealing dark, cavernous rooms inside. Nature fights to reclaim the land, with vines creeping through cracked floors and trees growing where patients once walked. Despite the decay, the air around Eloise remains heavy, thick with memories and something darker. Urban explorers and thrill-seekers venture inside, drawn by tales of hauntings and the lure of the unknown. But few return unshaken. Some tell of rooms where the temperature plummets suddenly, their breath visible even in summer heat. Others describe eerie sensations, like invisible eyes watching their every move. Whispers echo through empty hallways. And shadows seem to dance just beyond the corner of vision. Eloise is not just a relic. It's a warning. A place where the past refuses to stay buried. If you dare to explore these forgotten ruins, be prepared, not just for what you'll see, but for what might never let you leave. If you enjoyed this journey into the darkness of Eloise Asylum, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. There are many more abandoned places waiting to tell their stories, dark secrets, forgotten histories, and ghostly whispers. Join us, and let's uncover the mysteries of the abandoned together. Stay curious, stay cautious. And remember, some doors should never be opened.